All right, so let's take a look at some of these conversation tools up here. On the Home tab, and for those of you that are new to the new interface, when I speak about 2007 and 2010, I always talk in terms of tabs, groups, and buttons. So we're on our Home tab right now. That's up here, our Home tab. And when I talk about a group, for example, we're going to be talking about the Delete group here, and that is that little label for this box of buttons. And we're going to talk about these buttons in here. So tab, group, and button. So you'll hear me refer to it in those terms. And the reason I do that is pretty much most of your documentation, your instruction books, your blog posts, when they're telling you how to do something, they're giving you instructions in terms of tab, group, and button. So let's talk about this cleanup thing here and the conversation tools. And you may want to make a few notes under the heading of conversation tools. If I say discussion thread, most of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, conversation is akin to discussion thread, but we first have to be looking at our emails in conversation view. So I'm going to go to the View tab over here, and I'm going to check the box in the Conversations group called Show as Conversations. Now, when I do that, it's going to prompt me and ask me if I want to show messages arranged by conversations in all folders or just this folder. One of the handicaps of the discussion thread views and conversation views in previous versions of Outlook is it would not include your sent mail. So if you were part of this discussion, you wouldn't necessarily see your email in the conversation. Well, now when we click All Folders, any mail that you also sent in the conversation will be there. So let me expand this one from Chris. Let me get my little magnifier up here. Bear with me 1 second. So I have an email here from Chris Nolan, and you'll notice that next to it is a little white right-facing arrow. Those little white right-facing arrows tells you that this email is part of a conversation. And you can click on that arrow and it will expand it. If the arrow were to remain white, it would mean there is more expansion to be done. So you would keep clicking the arrow, this guy right here, until it looks like it does now, which is a black down-facing arrow. Let me magnify that. A black down-facing arrow. So with this conversation fully expanded, I can now go back to my Home tab and choose to clean up this conversation. Now, I don't know what it'll delete here. We'll find out. Clean up conversation. And I want it to do a cleanup. It's asking you to confirm it and click OK. And you can see it kind of reduced a little bit. That meant somewhere in that discussion thread, one or more emails were not needed, that their responses were included in one of the earlier emails. You'll notice here that it includes things that are in Sent and a folder called CTS Inbox. So it's including everything. What I like about this, in a way I kind of wish it was automatic, but in another way I'm kind of glad it's not. So a new day comes, more unread email. If there's any subtleties in the emails, I can take a look at them. But then at the end of looking at my new email, I run cleanup, and it keeps it reduced to the absolute minimum number of emails I need to keep that conversation in integrity. Now, the interesting thing is, if somebody in the middle of this conversation puts an attachment in, it will maintain the attachment. It will keep that email whole, the one that had the attachment in it, and then operate cleanup on the rest of them. So it really does an excellent job. For those of you who are a little bit geeky like me, wondering how it does that, it doesn't do it based on subject. It does it based on something called a message ID or an item ID. Each Outlook item now has its own serial number, and it actually does the conversation view by this message serial number.